the behavior of Khomeini is to be understood in the political background, not in relation to religion. Previous to Khomeini, as you well understand, there was a long rule of Shah of Iran, who was fully supported by America and generally supported by the Western powers. Now, his regime was in reality a dictatorial regime of immense cruelty. He got thousands, and according to some claims, hundreds of thousands of poor Iranians imprisoned, who were left abandoned and forgotten in the worst conditions to die mercilessly in those prisons, while no voice was raised in those days by the West in favor of those poor suffering souls. This is a background which you should never forget. Now, what happened later on was a readiness for the people of Iran to go into revolt against those atrocities. Now, this was just a firepower which could be utilized by any political movement. More so, it was possible and likely that the communists would utilize this situation and turn Iran red overnight. They had enough leadership. But fearing this, some Western powers provided Khomeini not only canopy in France, but also provided him with untold amount of money to launch a propaganda movement in Iran, so that instead of Iran turning left after the ouster of Shah, it would turn right. Now, they were hoping that the right in religion would also be the right in politics. That is to say, they confused rightism in religion with the rightism in the political term, that is capitalism. Now, Khomeini knew very well that he was a product of the Western support. And he also knew that if he did not do away with the Western-minded people in Iran, his days would be numbered. He also knew that an immediate attempt would be made to oust him from the power and replace him with the friends of the West after the coup had taken place. And he was also aware of the fact that there is intact communist leadership, which was trained by Dr. Mossadegh earlier and which was deeply entrenched in the Iranian society, which was capable of taking power from Khomeini. So what he did was, of course, cruel. I do not agree with that. But it was a political compulsion for him, because all totalitarian regimes are bound to enter a fury of murder and cruelty to safeguard their survival. Like to observe it in the communist world or in fascist world. Always remember that totalitarianism is most dangerous for man. Whether it is done in the name of religion or communism or fascism, totalitarianism is the most abhorrent thing to happen to any society. So it was not religion, it was this totalitarianism which befell Iran. And out of his compulsions, naturally he started not only beheading the rightist, political rightist, but also the political leftist. But you seldom heard of the murder of the political leftist in the Western world, because your media highlighted only one-sidedness of what he did. And you will be surprised to learn that hundreds of thousands of communists were also simultaneously beheaded. So what he did was, he tried to perpetuate his rule and the rule of a small clergy there, because he had gained power in the name of an ideology. And that ideology, if given ordinary chances of fair play, could not have survived there, because it was cruelty against which Iran was reacting. it was cruelty which had paved the way for a revolution. And Khomeini showed greater cruelty when he occupied power. So had the West left Iran alone, I was quite certain that there would have been another revolution which would have wiped out Khomeinism from Iran. But very stupidly or naively, to be more civil in my expression, America did not stand alone. It was America who coaxed and patronized through Saudi Arabia the regime in Iraq to attack Iran and teach them a lesson for defiance against the higher will of America. Now that was a very ill-conceived plan. It gave a completely new life, new lease of life to Khomeinism. 11 years of Khomeini's rule got extended beyond their natural survival in their war against Iran. So it was a very complicated thing to happen and very unfortunate thing. But the mistake was committed by some politicians in the West or some calculators or higher ups in the CIA. But it was a total mistake and total failure and a total flop. Now they have given a new lease of 11 years to Khomeinism, and in this process the mediocre leadership, the well-balanced leadership on which you could pin hope for the future of Iran has already been destroyed. So I don't know what may happen tomorrow, but I know that whatever has happened is very unfortunate.
Significantly enough, you outlined some of the points of persecution inflicted upon the Ahmadis throughout history in the last century. What are, in your views, the sources of these persecutions? I'm thinking merely of the Islamic religious establishment, countries like Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. Why are they so profoundly allergic towards Ahmadiyya and totally refuting anything related to Ahmadiyya? They usually call you innovative. Would you say that Arab mentality, body language, and behavioral pattern are not exactly synchronous with those people, with those of the inhabitants of the Indian subcontinents? I noticed that you've got